Hi, my name is Serbulent Turan. I was named by parents who never thought I would use the name. Most people call me Serb for obvious reasons. And today you're going to hear from me on and off as I introduce the speakers. I know we have a really good lineup of speakers for you. I know it's going to be interesting. I know it's going to be impressive. And I hope you will find it uplifting in a time where we could all use a little bit of lifting up. But before we do any of those things, I would like to start by just taking a moment and acknowledging that we are on the unceded, ancestral, and traditional lands of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. Now, I also teach at UBC, and I have done this exact land acknowledgement for 12 years. I don't know what that means, is what I asked a scholar, a First Nations scholar, saying, I don't know if this is doing anything for the audiences when I say that. Are we checking a box? What are we doing? Help me here. And they said, in the classic wisdom that I have come to expect from them, just look into the land when you do your acknowledgement, and then tell them what that makes you feel. So I have asked my colleagues, maybe I can take a few minutes and try to do this right. I live close by, and every once in a while, I do this old man thing of waking up really early and going for a walk so I can get a head start on shaking my fist at the young. And I generally walk by the seawall. I live close by. And I will tell you, it's peaceful for me. It is. It's calming. It helps me regulate my emotions, my thoughts. I come back refreshed. I walk by the sea, the forest, rain invigorates me. I feel great about it. And then when that public scholar friend suggested me to look into the land, I thought, let me look into it. And sometimes I walk up until the entrance of Stanley Park, named after Lord Stanley, he of the Stanley Cup. And maybe some of you would know there's a statue of him at the entrance with a small plaque that says he gifts Stanley Park to the enjoyment of people of all colors, creeds, and so on and so forth. So it's gifted to me. It's done in 1888. He came from Ottawa, where he is Governor General, here to gift Stanley Park to me and people like me. 1888 is the time where there is the largest Squamish settlement at the heart of Stanley Park. The largest, as in the longhouse alone, is 14,000 square feet, a few times this room, and that's just the longhouse. We think it might be one of the larger political centers of the Squamish Nation. As Lord Stanley gifts the park to my enjoyment, Squamish people are forcibly taken out of their land at gunpoint. This is my enjoyment when I acknowledge that this is the land I walk on, that this is where I find peace, regularly too. My peace of mind, my regulating my emotions and thoughts are built literally on the suffering and exile of a nation from their land. What we now know and recognize, what the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called a genocide. This is where my peace of mind is built on. And if I have to acknowledge this, we have to acknowledge this is the land that we live on. It creates obligations for us. We have to do a bit better so our progeny in a generation or two looks back and doesn't feel the weight that I feel. And it's not just a white man making his discomfort yours. I also want to tell you this, that I am so privileged that this is just a positive in my life, that I don't have to know this. I can just enjoy my walks. I'm not exposed to this information, even though I have been an uninvited guest on this land for 20 years. I looked for it because someone suggested. We're not exposed to these things, and we come and we acknowledge. What do we acknowledge? I would like maybe one of you, maybe two of you, maybe 10 of you to think a little bit more the way I did. Feel the shame, maybe, and feel the responsibility that would come from it, that we must do better. Anytime we stand and acknowledge that this is the unceded, traditional, ancestral lands of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam peoples. Thank you for listening to me here. I'm sorry I took your time. This, I promise you, would be the most, let's say, boring part of it. Everything else is going to be better from now on. I would be the most boring part of this talk. I really hope this didn't bring you down tremendously, but as I hope, it's going to lift you up from the rest of today. So moving from there, I also would like to kind of quickly recognize that we exist in this small space. Let me give you a little bit of housekeeping issues. So very first things first, on the very off chance of an emergency, you will hear intermittent beeps. That doesn't mean you need to leave. It means we're checking into an emergency. If there's a long, loud beep, it is time for us to leave and go to the ice rink. In the case of an earthquake, a fire, an alien invasion, the ice rink is the place that we need to go. There are washrooms on this side and on that side. There are universal washrooms and gendered washrooms on this side. And this is effectively the space that we're going to occupy for the next 3.5 hours. You have any questions, you have any comments, you have anything that you want to ask, we do have a relatively large events team. May I ask that they wave a little bit, people who are around? Yes, they're in the back and everything. Do not hesitate to go and ask them, what can I do about this? How can I get help about this? And so on and so forth. So all of this is the opening. And we're here because this is a gathering of Public Scholars Initiative and UBC Health Alliance, the Health Equity Stream. It was put together a few years ago with the idea of supporting scholars who do work, impactful work on health equity issues. We have been at it for 3 years now, and I am more than comfortable leaving you to be the judges of whether the scholars have done an acceptably good job. As I said, classic to my folk, I'm very happy to be proud and take credit for somebody else's work. They have done incredible works, and I really hope that you will be as impressed as I am. But to talk more about this partnership, I would like to invite Dr. Sharmila Anandasabapathy, the VP Health at UBC and also Dean of Faculty of Medicine, but also a clinical scientist whose research portfolio expands from cancer detection, biomedical engineering, global health education, training, clinical practice, innovation, and now, of course, this. Dr. Ananda.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Sharmila Anandasabapathy, Vice President and Dean of the Faculty of Medicine at UBC, and it's really a pleasure to be with you here today for Voices for Health Equity 2.0, and to see such a wide range of scholars, community partners, and health leaders gathered in one place. Events like this really matter because health equity is not an abstract goal. It is about whose voices are heard, whose knowledge is valued, and whose realities shape the systems we build. Advancing health equity requires us to work across disciplines, sectors, and lived experience, and to do so with humility, curiosity, and of course, accountability. At UBC Health, equity is not a standalone commitment. It is embedded in how we approach education, research, and partnership. Whether we are supporting public scholarship, strengthening team-based models of care, or building learning health systems alongside our partners, our work always asks the question, who benefits and who is being left behind? The Public Scholars Initiative Health Equity Stream is a powerful example of what this looks like in practice. The program supports doctoral scholars who are not only generating new knowledge, but also working with communities to mobilize that knowledge in ways that are meaningful, accessible, and action-oriented. The work you'll hear about today reflects the complexity of health equity challenges and the creativity, courage, and collaboration required to address these challenges. I'd like to acknowledge the community partners, mentors, and collaborators who support this work. Health equity is not advanced solely by institutions. It depends on sustained relationships, trust, and shared leadership across the health system and beyond. As we begin today's conversations, I encourage you to listen generously, question thoughtfully, and stay open to perspectives that may challenge your own. We hope this event not only sparks ideas, but also strengthens the connections needed to turn insight into action. Thank you for being here and all the work you do to advance health equity in your research, your practice, and your communities. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nanda. I'm going to quickly give you a run-through of the event, what it is that we're going to do, what it's going to look like. So we have, 6 speakers, but unfortunately, Amin is very sick. So he's not going to be able to come today. He has sent his regrets repeatedly. He does feel awful, both physically and emotionally. We do send him the very best. But otherwise, we have the 5 talks by 6 speakers. During the talks, you are very strongly encouraged to register to Slido or just do the QR code. You can ask questions on Slido. You can vote on people's questions. The most upvoted questions will not only be discussed in the discussion that follows the talks, but they will also be covered in the event video. So the issues that are raised and seen to be worthwhile discussing by everybody in the room will definitely be discussed and addressed and also be recorded. So this is effectively the run of the day. At the end of the talks, we will move to the opening just behind the registration, the HSBC room, for a larger discussion where you are more than welcome to join in with your ideas, questions, thoughts, suggestions, and so on and so forth. But before we start all of that, to properly ground us in larger view of the world and to incorporate Indigenous perspectives, I would like to invite Derek Thompson Bookwilla to the stage. Derek Thompson is the Director of Indigenous Engagement at the Faculty of Medicine. He's the Hereditary Chief of DT Nation, and he brings 30 years plus of experience engaging First Nations in health settings. Derek Thompson Bookwilla.
All right. I hurt my back this morning, so I'm moving a little bit slower. I was telling I hurt my back this morning. She goes, "Oh, were you fighting in the streets?" I said, "No, I was brushing my teeth." Thank you for allowing me a bit of time to speak to these issues relative to health equity generally, and I think more specifically from a Nuu-chah perspective, but certainly from a First Nations or Indigenous perspective. It's an honor to be here, and thank you to our Dean for her opening remarks to this important event. Čaabať Bookwilla, histak shultma di dot. Uts Bookwilla, nu wixu Bookwilla. O mixu klama kkeanis aksa. O mixu histak shultma haisla. Nu wixu histak shultma tsubasat. My name is Derek Thompson, and my ancestral name is Bookwilla. And I'm the Director for Indigenous Engagement with the UBC Faculty of Medicine. I am a seated and recognized hereditary chief, and my name, Bookwilla, is a signal to the people that I come from that I am a Čaabať or a Hutweth, in general terms, a hereditary chief. And its meaning is anchored in an ancient dialect that was once used to invoke the spirits of our ancestors. It was used as a force of gravity to call upon our most ancient and sacred ceremonies involving our Tlukwana, our society of supernatural wolves. Bookwilla is a chisum. It is the underpinning that pulls our cheha and our yakwimit into our bodies, into our spirits, and into our being. I come from a community called DT Dot, and we're one of 14 Nuu-chah-nulth communities along the west coast of Vancouver Island. Kayukit is our most northern Nuu-chah-nulth community, and Pachidat is our most southern. North of Kayukit is Brooks Peninsula, and south of Pachidat is Point No Point. And all of the shoreline and the inland mountain range between these 2 points of geography is collective and unrelinquished Nuu-chah-nulth territory. Sir Joseph William Trutch served as the first Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia and was instrumental in the disposal of Crown lands in BC, reducing First Nations Indian reserves by up to 90%. And he was consistent in publicly denying the existence of Aboriginal title. Quote, "This colony has no need for Indian policy whatsoever, and there is no need for Indian agents and no need for Indians. The only friends that the Indians have in the colony are the missionaries." End quote. By the early 1900s, 90% of the federal Crown Indian reserves in BC had been wholesaled off to wealthy white men. And most of them are still referenced today in Vancouver's downtown streets and throughout BC municipalities. A grave historical injustice that many BC First Nations are still trying to negotiate their way out of to some semblance of self-determination. I want to show you a short video of some women from Tlukwiat, and they're dancing, and the men singing. I want to show you this short video. It's of some women from Tlukwiat. Tlukwiat is a Nuu-chah-nulth community close to Tofino. And it's at a potlatch called a Tlak Tuthla that took place in November of last year at Port Alberni. A Tlak Tuthla is, in simple terms, a formal ceremony to mark the end of grieving for a loved one who's passed on and is now a cheha. Our cheha are our ancestors whom we knew in life and are no longer with us. And we also call upon our yakwimit to come and be seated with us, to dignify us and to dignify the washing of our tears. And our yakwimit are our ancestors whom we never knew in life, but we know we're inextricably connected to them. They are our ideal sense of who we are and where we come from and who we aspire to emulate. The Tlak Tuthla was for my late paternal grandfather, Ben David. Chimsanup was his name. His father, Hyacinth David, was half-brother to my late paternal great-grandfather, George Thompson.
Look,
My late Uncle Art Thompson, my dad's youngest brother, carved a totem pole that is standing in Stanley Park. He's one of 4 artists that were commissioned to produce a totem pole, and it's still standing there today. When they were first erected, you used to be able to go up to the totem poles and be really close to them, touch them, take pictures. You can't do that anymore. You're not allowed to be close to the totem poles, and many people don't know this. But the reason why they did that, if you go up to them today, a lot of people carved their initials into it. A lot of people climbed up the poles, carved their initials into it, and just did a lot of goofy stuff with those totem poles specifically. So you're not allowed to go up to them anymore for that reason. But I thought an interesting tension that if you go to any of those bronze statues throughout Stanley Park, none of them are vandalized. All right? So I think it speaks to the importance of the so-called relationship that we're still trying to work out. But I'll speak to the little bit that we did see. What you won't see are I panned off with my phone to the men who are singing just to my right. So you hear these men singing this beautiful song that the women are dancing to. So most of the performative dances by Nuu-chah-nulth women are intended to embody the grace and wonder of ihtup. Ihtup is our word generally for gray or humpback whales. When a whale breaches the surface for air, it's a near perfect movement that's barely noticeable except for the sudden spout of water coming from its blowhole. When you watch the women dancing, they move with the same grace and wonder. We call this movement Čaabať. Čaabať. When we watch and bear witness to our Nuu-chah-nulth women dancing in that graceful way, we call that Čaabať. And its meaning is she's really a wonderment. She's a really wondrous thing. Čaabať, she's really a wonderment. Another aspect of Nuu-chah-nulth women dancing is that it's intended to represent the act of transforming. In the time before time, mythical creatures could transform from being a killer whale to being a wolf to being a human being. When they move in a counterclockwise direction, they are in a state of transforming, collapsing time. And depending on the dance and song being used, they are moving constantly in a graceful and curious way, simultaneously in this world and in the spiritual realm, creating a protective field of prayer. This beautiful dance and the beauty, grace, and wonder of women is only matched by the strength and power of the song being used by the men. This is all an unparalleled combination of grace and power and transformation. From 1884 to 1951, Canadian law forbade our people to practice potlatching. For nearly 70 years, we were not allowed to celebrate the birth of our children in accordance with Nuu-chah-nulth law, nor the naming of our children, nor the coming of age of young women, nor the marriage of young couples, nor the seating of our chiefs, nor even the end of grief after a death. More and more, however, these powerfully meaningful traditions are coming out of hiding and into the public light again. I just want to show you the slide of the little girl. Beautiful. Look at these beautiful girls dancing. Čaabať, really a wonderment. Nuu-chah-nulth girls are often instructed and encouraged to learn these important dances and to personify the dignity of their mothers, grandmothers, aunties, and sisters. There's a shared responsibility of purpose and belonging that creates a protective field of prayer. From birth until death, we surround ourselves with a protective field of prayer. There's no human endeavor so elevated or trivial as to escape the need for prayer and discipline. All of the great Nuu-chah-nulth teachings are grounded in this simple truth. If equity means anything for our people, the people that I come from, the Nuu-chah-nulth people, It means that we're simultaneously coming to terms with the past and creating a way forward. Existing in two worlds, both complex in nature, negotiating our way out of oppression and assimilation to some semblance of self-determination, and teaching our young ones about the importance and relevance of who they are and where they come from. Nuu-chah-nulth people weren't migratory. Our identity developed over thousands of years based on residency. And within our territories, there were abundant resources, all anchored to cyclical relationships with the land, the air, the water, and the known universe. Over time, our ancestors created a complex social, cultural, and political hierarchy that was intended to look after each other, to nurture overlapping relationships that were linked to a central idea, and that idea being that we're all connected. He shukish tsoak. Perhaps most Canadians don't know that Nuu-chah-nulth people historically had policing, a judiciary system, and a most sophisticated, inclusive system of ownership and title. In the first place, the entire sea and land territory and everything in it are vested in our Tai'i Hatwith, our kings of each community. Lesser chiefs enjoyed almost exclusive rights to more limited and specific parcels of territory and the resources therein. Every citizen had a role to play, extracting resources for the benefit of the entire local group, and every citizen owed allegiance and a share of those resources to the titled owner. In turn, our Hatwith had a responsibility to manage the resources for the greatest benefit of all their people. Furthermore, our Hatwith had huge responsibilities to their people in all ceremonial and ritual settings. Reciprocity is built into our system, in that all families are expected to contribute when their chiefs host potlatches. In turn, our Hatwith are expected to look after the initiation and naming of all their people. As you can imagine, this is no small undertaking, but rather a commitment extending over a lifetime, covering things such as births, naming of a baby, a feast when the umbilical cord falls off, celebration of a child attaining his or her own mind, survival of any near-death experience, coming of age, marriage, initiation into dancing societies, apology feasts, cleansing feasts, and a season of superabundance of particular resources, death, and Tlachtutla feasts. Traditionally, decorated big houses, ceremonial canoes, crest poles, painted ceremonial curtains, massive communal feast dishes, carved and painted treasure chests, masks, and rattles, as well as intangibles such as names, titles, and songs. All function to highlight our belief system and demonstrate ownership and authority over our territory and the resources in it. These are very complex systems that developed nowhere else in the world but here and are appropriate for our Nuu-chah-nulth people and communities. And they represent and reflect our unique expression of a holistic, strength-based approach that views health as a balance that is anchored to ancient and revered ceremonial and spiritual practice and deeply connected to land and resources. This, in and of itself, should be enough evidence to demand the dismantling of health systems that perpetrated and perpetuate systemic racism, and to include Indigenous peoples and processes to reconceptualize our understanding of the social determinants of health in relation to who we are and where we come from, and to form and inform health equity in relation to our unique understanding of health and related services. Creating beautiful things is only a small part of who we are, and the beauty is only a reflection of the respect we have for our inheritance, for our culture and our values as Kuas people, as Nuu-chah-nulth people. We make things because things need to be made. And outside of these kinds of spaces, our treasures are often danced and worn and used as tools to uphold our sovereignty, our title, and most of all, our sacred roles and responsibilities in creation. A long time ago, in the time before time, a legendary superhuman woman cried for 4 eternities, and through her grief she created the first Nichanos Kuas, real living human being. There are about 400 billion stars in our galaxy. There are about 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. The Nichanos have only ever adhered to living our way of life in our part of the world, all the while acknowledging that we are all inextricably connected with all living things here and beyond. But we're also aware that we're limited by the simplicity of being human, often driven by the desire for greed, ego, and loathing. The Nichanos people understand that the story of the universe is our story, that our time here on earth is brief within the space-time continuum, that all of life is fleeting, and that darkness is infinite. And perhaps that's why the superhuman woman cried for 4 eternities. We Nichanos accept that we are collectively a single grain of sand within the formidable expanse in the arrow of time. This is the standard of excellence that I come from. It's important to consider that the colonial past does not define me. However, it irrefutably defines Canada and its Canadians. It's critically important for you to consider when working with our beautiful people that we're working to build some semblance of the greatness of who we are and where we come from. This song I'm going to sing anchors us to this endeavor and unites us in our efforts to understand, respect, and to be mindful of each other in this era of telling the truth and reconciling for the future. So I shared this song with my uncle Ron Hamilton, Hat Yoops from Hupuchesset, my cousin Sherry Cook, who's a seated chief in Huayet. And when we sing the song, we typically use this in our potlatches as a way to conclude the business, the work that's been done. And when we come together and sing that song in a collective way, its purpose is really to remind us of the importance of who we are and where we come from, and to always lift each other up in an effort to uphold our sovereignty. Wa-hey-you, ha-yeah, wa-hey-you, wa-hey-you, wa-hey-you.